The parentification of children, specifically firstborn children, is an anomaly. You do not have to lay your life down simply because you are the first child. This doesn't mean you abandon your family, not to the extent of you sacrificing yourself and your sanity. Let us be honest with ourselves. At the end of the day, if God forbid something happens to you, the world, including your family, will move on. A lot of African parents teach children that the older one sacrifices for the younger one. As far as they are concerned, that is leadership. That is not leadership. It's those little things that parents do, like beating the child or beating the older child for a mistake that the younger child made. Every child should be taught to care for one another. That is the right thing to do. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Life Lessons with Lau. My name is Loretta Gerard, and on this space we like to have open, honest, authentic, heart-to-heart conversations on everything pertaining to love, life, faith, and womanhood. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, or maybe your first time watching it on YouTube, you are most welcome. And if you have been listening to this podcast or you have been watching it on YouTube, thank you so much for coming back over and over again. It means the world to me. Okay, so as you can see today, I am sitting pretty alone in pink. And that's because, of course, I don't have any guests with me today, because I just thought that I should just jump on here and just have a little chit chat about something that I have been ruminating on for a long time. Or should I say just something that I came to, that I realized very recently, or should I say just lessons on a particular topic that has evolved over the years. Today, I want to talk to you about being an African firstborn daughter and what that has taught me, and some of the things that I have gleaned as an African firstborn daughter. So it's going to be it's going to be a nice one, because I've been thinking about, I actually did an episode, I think like 2 years ago. I did an episode called the African Firstborn Daughter Syndrome. It's not a video episode, it was just purely audio, but I think it's also here on YouTube. So I'll put the link to that episode in the description so you can listen to it. And it's also wherever you get your podcast. It's on a podcast channel as well, where I talked about what it means to be an African firstborn daughter and some of the lessons. So let's just say this is just more like, should I say, me building on that? Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about today. So let's get this started, shall we? All right. So if you are an African firstborn daughter or an African firstborn child, let me know in the comments. The reason why I'm being specific about it being an African firstborn daughter is because I am an African firstborn daughter. I can't speak for other cultures, but I can only speak about what I have gone through and what I have observed as an African firstborn daughter. Now, to give you some context, I am the firstborn child of my parents. So the very first child that they've got, and the first daughter. So I'm the firstborn child of my parents and the first daughter of my parents. My parents have 6 children. So I am the first of 6 children. So I've got 5 siblings. 5. Yeah. I know I look too young to have 5 siblings, but I do have 5 siblings, 5 wonderful siblings that I love with all my heart. And they most likely will see this because they typically watch the podcast. So hi guys, I love you. But this is something that I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. In terms of why I'm doing this for 2 reasons. 2 main reasons. The first is I'm recording this episode as some kind of documentation, or should I say as a way of holding myself accountable for when I begin to raise my own children, specifically when I begin to raise my own first child. The reason is sometimes it's easy for us to think that we have learned lessons, or it's easy for us to decide that, oh, because my parents did something, I'm never going to do it again, or for us to swear and promise ourselves that this thing that my parents did, I will definitely never do it again. But then life has a way of bamboozling us. Life has a way of showing us or exposing us to ourselves, and sometimes you might end up perpetuating that same thing that you resent. So if you say, oh, because my parents did this, I'll never do this to my child, just wait until that wound is activated or triggered, and you'll be surprised you'll be doing the very thing. If you're not careful, you'll be doing the very thing that you promised that you would not do. I say that to say, nobody is perfect. We're all humans. And sometimes there are parts of us that are unseen, parts of us that are not exposed. And as time goes on, and as we find ourselves in certain situations, in this case, as we find ourselves raising children, having children, those parts of us become triggered and they become activated, and we find ourselves acting out of character. So this for me is a way of holding myself accountable so that I can go back over and over again to listen to this and remind myself the lessons that I have learned, so that I do not inflict the same harm on my children. That's the first reason. The second reason I'm doing this is for two groups of people. The first are parents who are currently raising children. So you have young children and you are currently raising them. This is, for me, I just want to use this as an opportunity to talk about some of the things that I have had to go through as a firstborn daughter, how they have affected my life, in the hopes that you do not make the same mistakes in raising your own children. The second group of people are people who have already raised children, so grown-up people like my parents, in the hopes that you can understand the impact of some of the decisions that you made as parents. Now, look, I do not say this to cast blames, right? And me doing this is not to maybe cast blames on my parents, or no. I understand, and a lot of us have probably come to this conclusion where we're like, look, our parents actually did the best they could based on what they knew, right? And nobody is perfect. Nobody knows it all. Your parents are just also living life for the first time. And I'm saying this to someone who's probably hurt, whose parents have probably hurt them. You know, maybe your parents probably raised you in ways that you probably now think, okay, this was not right. So, but I need you to understand that they did the best that they could based on what they knew. So the onus is on you to do better. It's not for you to continue to blame them. It's not for you to continue to resent them. No, it's for you to glean the lessons from that and ensure that you try as much as possible to do better. The truth is that at the end of the day, you also will make a mistake. No, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that you're going to be perfect, even in raising your own children. But knowledge improves, right? So you know better, you do better. Your children know better, they do better. So that's how it ought to be. So yeah, just putting that out there to say, this is not to cast blame on the parents, but it's to make the parents see the role that they played in some of the outcomes, or some of the dynamics that we're seeing today in the family structure. Some of the lessons that I learned as an African firstborn daughter. Number one, the parentification of children is an anomaly. I'll say that again. The parentification of children, specifically firstborn children, and even more specifically firstborn daughters, is an anomaly. I grew up with 5 siblings, and there came a time when my parents could no longer afford to have maids or people at home living with us, and they had to work, right? So because of that, I remember I was 10 at the time, and I had to stay home. I was 10 years old, and I had to stay home with my siblings. So imagine a 10-year-old having to look after and be responsible for 5 children. I think two of my siblings at the time were still babies. So yeah, I was like 10, 11 at the time, and 2 of my siblings were still babies. So one was like a year old, and the other one was like maybe 2 years old, or maybe, yeah, they were very little. They were technically babies. And the rest of my siblings, of course, if I'm 11 years old or 10 years old, we're all babies. So imagine leaving a baby to look after other babies. And it's not normal. It's not something that any child should be responsible for. But I was. And not only did I have to be responsible for them, I was also held responsible for their errors. So when my siblings would do something wrong, I would get the whooping for it. So if, for example, my brother did something mischievous, or he messed something up, and then my parents came back from work, instead of him getting the beating, I get the beating. So what that taught me was, it is your job to look after your siblings. Their outcome is your responsibility. So I was technically a second parent to a group of children. Even though I was a child myself, I also needed to be parented, right? So this parentification of children, where children are made to take up responsibility or the responsibilities of adults, it is not normal. And it's those little things that parents do, like beating the child or beating the older child for a mistake that the younger child made. It is those things that make the older children believe that, oh, it's my job. I'm supposed to look after you. I'm supposed to care for you. I'm supposed to be responsible for you. I'm not saying that older siblings should not care for their younger siblings. I am saying everybody should be taught to care for one another. It is not one person's job to care and the other to be nonchalant, right? It is everybody's job to care. So the older should care for the younger, and the younger should care for the older. It's in an ideal world, the right thing to do is to teach every one of your children to care for one another and not make it the primary responsibility of the older child. So you would see, for me, there were instances where maybe I might be playing with something, or I might have something, and my brother or my sister would want that thing and would be crying profusely for something that doesn't belong to them, something that clearly belongs to me. And my parents would say, oh, give it to your sister or give it to your brother, much to the chagrin of the older child, much to the disappointment of the older child. And then my mother would say, oh, don't you know that you are older? Leave it for your younger brother or leave it for your younger sister. Teaching the older child that it is their job to self-sacrifice. And teaching the younger child that it is this person's job to give what they have to you. What you are doing is teaching your younger children entitlement. You are teaching your younger children that they can collect whatever they want from the older child without consequences. That it is the job of the older child to sacrifice for them. And you see this play out a lot of times. Like if you scroll on the streets of social media, you see people talking about this all the time. And I'm glad that we're beginning to bring these topics to the fore, and people are beginning to throw light on these things and expose the anomaly that it is. And you see people saying stories about how, all their salary they had to spend on their family, all their school fees, they had to pay everybody's school fees, and the first child is practically sacrificing their lives, sacrificing their means of livelihood to look after siblings. That is parentification. It is not the responsibility of any child to care. And I'm saying this to parents. It is not the responsibility of any child to care for your children. It is not their job. They did not bring those children to this world. You did. You take care of your children. Do not pass the buck of parenthood to a child that you bore. No. That is your responsibility as a parent. If you cannot care for your children, why did you bring them into the world? So why are you transferring that to another child? And making another child sacrifice themselves, sacrifice their lives for a child or children that you gave birth to. You did not summon them when you decided to go and have other children. They were not invited to the meeting. And now you feel like it is their job to take over that parenting responsibility, to care for a child that they did not bring into this world. It is an anomaly. And so you see a lot of times younger siblings getting or feeling entitled to the things, to the material resources or whatever of the older child. You have to understand that it's not entirely their fault. It is the way that a lot of African parents have raised children. A lot of African parents teach children that the older one sacrifices for the younger one. As far as they are concerned, that is leadership. That is not leadership. Leadership is not self-sacrifice. Every child should be taught to care for one another. That is the right thing to do. Right? So, yeah, in essence, the parentification of firstborn children is an anomaly. It should not be. Because that child will grow up and take that into the world, and then begin to feel like everything that like their whole lives should revolve around their family or around their siblings, and it should not be. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't look after it, if you have the means, don't look after your family. That's not what I'm saying. Everything balance is important in life. Generosity is important, right? And when I say generosity, I mean whoever is much more capable financially should be able to help others, whether that's the firstborn, whether that's the lastborn, whether that's the middleborn. Generosity is something that should be taught to all children, all your children. Not just one person. You don't teach one child to be generous to the other child and teach the other children to collect from one person. No. You teach every single child the importance of generosity. You teach every single child the importance of sharing and caring. If not, these children are going to grow up, and one person is going to be left with the responsibility of caring even for you, the parent. You see a lot of families. Maybe you have younger siblings, or you have an older sibling, you have younger siblings, and you see that at the end of the day, when the children are growing up, it's the older siblings that look after the parents, and younger siblings are like, well, it's not my job, it's not my responsibility. You are the older one, you should take care of your parents. And you, as a parent, you bear that consequence, because your younger children, you have taught them that it's not their job to care for you as well. And so they leave all of that caring to the older one, and they just go about their lives. And you are then scampering around looking for your other children, and they're nowhere to be found. Because as far as they're concerned, and you won't blame them, as far as they're concerned, it's not my job to look after you. You did that as a parent. You taught them that. You taught them that. And so if, God forbid, something happens to the older child, you don't have any children left because the other children don't care. And not because they're being mean, but because they were not taught that it's everybody's job. Do you understand? So, yeah, I think so. As we're raising children, for those of us in this younger generation, as we're raising children, it is important for us to have these things at the back of our minds. It is critical. Another lesson that I would say I'm learning as a first child or as a firstborn daughter is that the outcome of my siblings is not my responsibility. And I really had to learn this. Because you see, when you grow up in a setting where everybody tells you, oh, you have to be an example, or your siblings are looking up to you, not like that's a bad thing, right? But where you are raised to see people's outcome or the outcome of your siblings as your responsibility. Because right from a tender age, when, for example, maybe your sibling did poorly in their homework, your mother blames you or your father blames you and says, it's because you did not teach them. It's because you were not paying attention. It's because so you are taught from an early age that the outcome or whatever happens, whatever the consequences of the decisions of your siblings is your fault. Everything, what happens to them or the results that they get in their lives is dependent on you. That is not correct. And I had to learn this, because I had to learn over the years, because I found myself in this space where I was always internalizing the decisions of my siblings. So they will do things and I'll feel responsible for it. I'll feel like, oh, it's my fault. Oh, this person did this. It's because I wasn't there. Or it's because I wasn't paying attention. Or it's because I was too busy. No. No. Especially if these people are adults. Adults make decisions and they must face the consequences of their decisions. I am not responsible for anybody's outcome. I'm not. If you decide to take a path and that path turns out to be the wrong path, you will face the consequence. And I will not lose my sleep over it. Why? Because you are an adult. And it is part of adulthood. So I think as parents, let us learn to stop heaping blames on the older siblings for decisions that younger siblings make. It is important. Don't put that, it's an unfair and an unjust burden to put on a child. If you have a child who makes wrong decisions, takes the wrong path, maybe it is failed parenting, not the fault of your first child. Definitely not the fault of your first child. It is as a result of your parenting. So I think we need to begin to remove this blaming and just undue responsibility and burden from the shoulders of firstborn children. They're also children. They are also children. Flowing on from that, another lesson that I have learned as a firstborn daughter is that I do not have to self-sacrifice to prove my leadership. I do not have to self-sacrifice to prove myself to you or my family. Self-sacrifice is something that is an offshoot, or should I say a result or a consequence of parentification, where children are taught that they ought to learn to give up themselves, give up their comfort to make their younger siblings comfortable, that it is their job to lay their lives down for their younger siblings. It is their job to ensure, even if it costs them, just ensure that your younger siblings are taken care of. No. I understand the place of sacrifice, and sacrifice is good when it is necessary, right? But requiring a child to always self-sacrifice to make other people comfortable simply because they are the first child is unacceptable. It should not be allowed to continue. It is just plain wrong. And have learned over time that I do not have to self-sacrifice to prove myself to you. I do not have to empty my bank account to make you comfortable, to make anybody comfortable, to make anybody's child comfortable. I don't have to kill myself. I don't have to make life difficult for myself simply because I'm trying to make life easy for you. No. Everybody in this world has a role to play, right? So self-sacrificing to make you or to make a sibling comfortable is not the will of God. You will work yourself to the bone and you will just die, and the world will continue and everybody will move on. So as a parent, it is something to teach your children. It is something to teach your children. You do not have to lay your life down. You do not have to lay your life down simply because you are the first child. You do not have to lay your life down and kill yourself simply because you are the first child and you feel like this burden of caring for your family is entirely on your shoulders. Again, I keep saying this because I need to balance things. This doesn't mean you abandon your family. This doesn't mean you don't show care and concern for your family. All I'm saying is that not to the extent of you sacrificing yourself and your sanity. Because at the end of the day, truth be told, let us be honest with ourselves. At the end of the day, if God forbid something happens to you, the world, including your family, will move on. Yeah. So if you think that you are the savior, if you think that, without you, none of your family members will survive. If you think that you are the emperor, the conqueror, the champion, and without you, because the whole entire success and well-being of the family rests on your shoulders. If you think that they would not survive without you, and you push yourself to the extent of losing your mind, your soul, your sanity, your life, it will hurt. They will hurt, but they will move on because life will have to go on. And the very same people that you think cannot survive without you, you'd be shocked when you're watching them from heaven how sufficient or how self-sufficient they can be. You are not Jesus Christ. You are not Jesus Christ. You are not the Messiah. So long as it depends on you, be there for your family. So long as it depends on you, care for your family. So to the best of your ability, ensure that you are there for them. But do not to the extent of sacrificing your joy, your peace, your future. No. So, and also to parents, expecting a child to sacrifice everything for you and to raise children that you birthed. I want to say something, but I'm not going to say it out of respect. But it is just wrong. It is just wrong. There is this movie that people have been telling me to watch on YouTube. It's a Nigerian movie that talks about being the firstborn child. And I've been like, I don't want to watch it because I don't want anything. I don't want to be triggered by anything at this point in my life. But from the stories that I've heard, it's quite sickening because apparently it's about one lady who was just doing everything and sacrificing her whole life for her family and her siblings, and they turn back and turn around, and the whole thing just comes back and bites her at the end, which is sad, right? And I know that it's a movie, but you'll be shocked how many people, like, this is the story of their lives. It's unhealthy family patterns, unhealthy family expectations placed on a firstborn child. The firstborn child is the one that is made to do all of the hustling and made to or required to repatriate all of the monies that they made, all of their finances, to keep the family coffers going or to keep the family fed. It is not a child's job to do that. It is not a child's job to do that. If people decide that they want to support their family financially, that's good. That's fine. In fact, that's a good thing to do. That's a responsible thing to do, right? But it should not be something that they are mandated to do. It should not be something while you have other grown up children sitting down, crossing their legs and waiting for someone to spoon feed them. No. That's not, no. It's wrong. And all of these things, as I said earlier, it starts from childhood. It starts from how you raise children. It starts from the things that you say to your children when they're growing up. It starts from the little things. When you grab this person's toy and give to this other person. When you tell this person, you watch your sibling, don't you know that it's your job? Why would you sit down there and your brother fell on the floor and you are watching? Right? It should be vice versa. You watch over your younger sibling and younger sibling also watch over your older sibling. You share with your younger sibling and younger sibling also share with older sibling. That is how it should be taught. A child is a child. Don't make a parent out of a child. Another thing that I have learned as a firstborn African daughter is that I am also deserving of care. I am also deserving of a parent. I am also deserving of being parented. And I realized as I grew up that my parents kind of left the parenting to an extent, kind of left the parenting to me. And I was kind of left to somehow parent myself and somehow a little bit parent my siblings also. And what that taught me at the end of the day is that, sometimes I have to forgo my own feelings, forgo my own emotions, toss them aside in order to be there for my younger siblings. In order to, even though I myself am going through stuff, I have to put that aside and care. Right? But I deserve care too. And as a firstborn child, you find yourself, trying to keep everybody together. So a lot of times you're probably the one who's calling, reaching out, checking on everybody, making sure that everybody's okay, or, ensuring that everybody's fine. You just have this sense of responsibility where you feel like, I have to ensure that everybody's fine, or I have to ensure that they're all doing okay. I have to check in on them. And then you then find out that but with you, it's crickets to an extent. And you then learn that, and a lot of times, it's not the fault of the younger siblings, right? It's because over time, as a firstborn child, you have been taught that it is your job to give care, but you were not really taught that you're also supposed to receive care. So you also learn that it is your job to give help, but nobody teaches you how to receive help, how to receive love. You're always the one giving your time, giving your attention, giving your affection, giving your interest, giving your advice, giving you money. You're always giving. You're always giving because you were taught to always give. But nobody taught you how to receive. Nobody taught you how to receive. Nobody taught you how to ask for help. Nobody taught you that it is okay to actually ask for help. Nobody taught you that your siblings also, and just as you have a responsibility to care for your siblings, they also have a responsibility to care for you. And nobody taught the younger siblings as well, that you should not just be a recipient, you should also be a giver. It is not just one person's job to call you or check on you. This other person is also a child of your parent. Even if this person is your older sibling, This older sibling is also a child of your parents. They are also deserving of the same love, affection, care, devotion that they give you. They are also deserving of receiving those things. So yeah, I learned over time that I am also deserving of care. Me too. I am deserving of gifts. I'm deserving of gifts. It's not every time I'm being the one giving you gifts. You too. Give me gifts too. And it's interesting how this trickles into your adult life and your relationships with people. I mean, for me, I found myself even in friendships and romantic relationships, I'm like finding it hard to ask for help. I was just too independent. I was used to giving. And if you jam mad people, they love people that like to always give. They love them because they will collect. Oh, no, they will collect. But I had to learn over time. As I grew older, I got into friendships, got into relationships. I saw that pattern, and it made me see that it was coming from my childhood, because I was taught that it is my job to give. I was taught that it is my job to always show the care, right? But I'm also deserving of care. I'm also a child. And moving on from that, another lesson that I've learned as an African firstborn daughter is that I don't always have to be strong. You see, growing up, I remember sometimes I'll be so emotional. And look, I've always been a very sensitive child, very sensitive. So I was one of those children that little things will make me cry. Very sensitive. It's my superpower, right? And I remember then our little things would make me cry, and my mother would tell me, or my dad, or both of them would tell me stuff like, "Why are you crying? Don't you know? Do you want your siblings to see you crying? Why are you crying? You have to be strong." And I learned over time that my feelings did not matter, that I had to have it together. I always had to have it together. And many times, as I grew older, I had to always create that illusion of holding it together. Everything needed to be perfect. Everything needed to just make sense. And even when everything was falling apart, I had this, I just felt like nobody needed to see me falling apart. My siblings do not have to see me falling apart. They need to see me as strong. They need to see me as perfect. They need to see me as bold. They need to see me as audacious. They don't have to see the other part of me that is not so pretty. So I must hold it all together. I must be mature. I must, everything. I need to have it all together. I need to be strong. My siblings, I need to put up a bold facade for my siblings. They need to see me always strong. It's because I'm their example, But life will teach you that if your family can't accept all the parts of you, what exactly are you doing? If there's anybody in the world that should see all parts of you, it's the people closest to you. If there's anybody in the world that should see you falling apart, which is a key part of life. Falling apart is a crucial part of evolving, of becoming. So if your family cannot see you falling apart, the closest people to you, then what exactly are we doing? Because I am able to see other people falling apart and hold them in that moment, able to see my siblings falling apart, go through those moments where those sensitive moments where it feels like their lives are just, things are just not making sense, which is a normal part of life, right? And I'm able to be there with them in that moment. And I can't even let myself be held when life is just giving me buzzballs. When life is just, tossing me around, and I'm hiding, putting up a facade, putting up a bold face because I'm trying to be strong, because I was told that as a firstborn child, they're looking up to me. No, please don't look up to me. Don't look up to me. In fact, I think for me, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, look, for my siblings, don't look up to me. Don't look up to me. Look up to Jesus. Look, and I'm saying this to my siblings. Let me just tell them directly, you guys, please don't look up to me. Because I am just a human being. I am just a human being. It is too much burden for me to carry, to always try to have it together, because I feel like, I need to be an example. My siblings are looking up to me. They're watching the way I do this. They're watching the way I do that. Everything I do informs their decision. Please, no. No. I am just a human being with my own faults, with my own frailties. I am being held by God Almighty. Jesus is my uncle. Jesus is the one holding me. My life is not perfect. I am not perfect. I fall apart. God pulls me back together. I fall apart. God pulls me back together. I am just a child. Right? I'm just a human being. So I don't need to have it all together all the time. Who does? I don't know. If you've met one person that has it together all the time, point me to that person. Then we need to find out how the person is doing it. I have my moments. I get cranky. I have failures. Stuff happens. I get pissed. I get mad. I go bonkers. So I'm just a human being that God is helping. If you use me as your yardstick simply because I'm the first child, you're looking at the wrong thing, right? Does this mean that I don't have a sense of responsibility towards my siblings, or I don't care about how I live my life? No. What I'm saying is that the fact that I'm the firstborn daughter or the firstborn child doesn't make me a shining example. The reason I say this is because we may be siblings. Now, the fact that children are born to the same parents doesn't mean that they have the same destiny. Doesn't mean they have the same destiny. And parents need to ensure this. If, for example, your first child excels in math or excels in science, maybe science subjects like STEM subjects, and the other siblings don't do, or you have another child who doesn't do as well in STEM subjects but does very well in art subjects, you don't tell that younger child that something is wrong with them simply because they are not performing as well as their older sibling. No. Because the fact that they were born to the same household doesn't mean they have the same destiny. Doesn't mean that their lives will end up the same way. Doesn't mean that God's plan for them is the same. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's life is different. It is God that knows the purpose of the different children that you have. He knows they have their different strengths, their different, weaknesses, right? So for me, what I'm saying is that I'm not trying to be an example to my siblings or trying to be the best example to them, right? I'm trying, if anything, I want them to see my humanity. If there is anything that I want them to take or to learn from me, it is that I'm human. It's that I'm human. I fall, I fail, and I rise. But I do not want them comparing their lives to mine, comparing their performance to mine, comparing the outcomes of their lives to mine, because we have very different paths, and success will look like different things to all of us, right? If there's one thing I desire for them, is that they find their own path, is that they find their own expression, is that they find the purpose and the assignment that God has laid down for them. That's my desire. So it's not for them to want to live their lives like me. No. So for me, I have learned over time that I don't need to have it all together. I don't need to pretend like I have it all together. You will see all the sides of me. You will see the good parts. You will see the bad parts. You will see the angry parts. You will see the fearful parts. I'm just a human being. So, as a parent, it is important for you to have this at the back of your mind as you raise your children. Please, I want us to begin to reshape how we do family. I want us to begin to rethink how we do family. This undue burden that we place on firstborn children, let's begin to unlearn it, because it has consequences that trickle into adulthood. You see women not being able to ask for help, hyper independent. You see women who become extreme high achievers, that having low and slow moments in life almost feels like it makes you feel like nothing good is happening in your life, even though having moments of stillness, having the ebbs and flows of life, it is just a part of life. You see women who are they're just performers, because all their lives they've been taught to perform. Because they're constantly told that you have to be an example to the younger ones. They have to always perform, always be people that they are not. You see people who cannot build wealth because they self-sacrifice. They sabotage their earnings, sabotage their finances, because they feel like it is their job to look after their family. And you see people who are just entitled because they feel like it is one child's job, simply because that child is the first child, to care for them financially. Everything should be done decently and in order. Generosity is not for one position alone. It's not for the firstborn position alone. Generosity is for everyone. Everybody should care for everybody. Every child should be taught to care for their siblings. Every child should be taught that it is their responsibility to care for their parents. The Bible says that children should honor their parents. It doesn't say firstborn children only. Children should care for their parents, regardless of position. So, when we begin to identify some of these patterns, God helping us, we can begin to unlearn them and learn healthier ways to raise children. Yep. And on that note, we have come to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're a firstborn child, let me know what are some of the things that you have learned or that you are learning as an African firstborn. I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please do well to share this with your fellow firstborn daughters, your siblings, your parents, if you have the mind, your parents. But yeah, I hope this was really helpful. As I said, I don't I tried as much as possible to not make it seem like we are casting blames on the parents. And I really don't want us to do that, because I see another extreme, especially on social media, where people are constantly castigating their parents. And it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. You see people castigating their parents. You see people saying things like nobody should take care of their family. You're really extreme things. And I try as much as possible not to pander to extremes. I try as much as possible, God helping me, not to do that, because I know that there's always a balanced way to do things, right? So yeah, I know that for some people this might have been triggering, but I do not want you to be triggered to the extent of you resenting your parents or you casting all the blames on them. I want you to see this as an awakening. You know better. You do better. They didn't know better. That's okay. But you can love them even in all of that. You can and you should care for them even despite that, right? And care looks like different things to different people, right? So you find a balanced way to do the right thing. You find a balanced way to correct the anomaly of some of these toxic patterns of being an African firstborn daughter, right? But it doesn't mean that you throw your family away. It doesn't mean that you neglect your family. It doesn't mean that you toss them aside if they need you. Please, that is demonic. That is not that is not the way of God. All right. All I'm saying is that recognize the patterns, unlearn them, aim to do better, right? And just find a balanced way to do things. If you're a parent watching this, God is going to help you. I pray that God gives you wisdom as you're raising your children to do what is right, to recognize when you are unknowingly perpetuating some of these patterns, and to course correct immediately. I know that nobody's perfect, and we're not going to get it, just all at once. It takes time, baby steps. But the first step is knowledge. The first step is awareness. Now that you know, go and do better. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for listening. If you're listening to this, I'll see you again in my next episode. Bye.